People often judge others by what they see on the outside, but sometimes a single moment of misunderstanding can reveal more about a person's character than years of knowing them. And when truth finally comes out, it can shake everyone standing around. The morning air was heavy with the smell of fresh coffee and the faint sound of traffic outside the glass doors. Anna carried her bag in one hand and a paper cup in the other, her heels clicking against the marble floor of the building's lobby. She looked around with irritation. The lobby was crowded, and the cleaner mopping the corner seemed to be slowing everything down. "Can't you do this later?" she snapped, raising her voice without even looking him in the eye. The man, dressed in plain grey overalls with slightly messy black hair, simply nodded and continued wiping the wet floor. Anna sighed loudly, shaking her head. She stepped past him, but when a bit of dirty water splashed near her shoe, she lost her temper. Without thinking, she tilted her coffee cup forward, spilling what was left in it across the floor, some of it landing on the cleaner's sleeve. "Maybe this will make you hurry up," she muttered. A couple of people standing nearby gasped quietly, but no one said a word. The man froze. His eyes lingered on the stain spreading across his arm, but instead of reacting, he simply looked up at her with a calm expression. His silence only made Anna feel justified. "Unbelievable," she said under her breath, walking off toward the elevators. Later that afternoon, the company was buzzing. It was a big day. Investors were visiting, and rumors were floating around that one of them was an extremely wealthy man, someone who could change the company's future overnight. Everyone gathered in the conference hall, whispers bouncing off the glass walls. Anna stood with her colleagues, fixing her hair in a compact mirror. The door opened, and in walked the same man from the lobby, the one she had mocked and splashed earlier. But now he wasn't in grey overalls. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his hair neatly styled, and he carried an air of quiet authority. Anna's jaw dropped. Around her, murmurs grew louder. People exchanged shocked glances as whispers spread like fire through the room. The CEO walked up to the man with a wide smile and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, meet Mr. Carter, the lead investor and one of the wealthiest men in the state." Anna felt her stomach twist. Her face turned pale as her hands shook slightly. She could still remember the look in his eyes when she had poured coffee on him. And now, those same eyes scanned the room, calm, sharp, and unreadable. Her heart raced as she prayed he wouldn't recognize her, but deep inside, she knew he already had. The room fell into a heavy silence as Mr. Carter adjusted his tie and walked toward the front. The contrast between the quiet janitor-like figure from earlier and the powerful presence he now carried was so sharp that people could hardly process it. His posture was steady, his steps measured, and his expression unreadable. Anna's throat went dry. She shifted uneasily on her feet, her heart beating fast. She could feel the weight of her earlier actions pressing down on her chest. "Thank you all for welcoming me," Mr. Carter began, his voice calm but carrying authority. "I came here not just to discuss numbers, but to see the people behind this company. Too often, we judge success by glass walls and expensive suits. But I believe the real value of any company lies in how its people treat one another, especially those who seem invisible." The words struck Anna like a knife. Her palms grew sweaty, and she could feel the heat rising in her cheeks. She wanted to look away, but something about the way he scanned the room made her feel as though he was speaking directly to her. The rest of the employees nodded along, some even applauding lightly. Not realizing the double meaning woven through his calm speech, Anna leaned toward her colleague, whispering nervously, "Did you know it was him? I mean, this morning." "No one told us." Her colleague shook his head. "Not a clue. I just know the CEO has been chasing this man for months. He's the kind of investor who can buy entire companies without blinking." The reality sank deeper into Anna's chest. She had treated this man, the very person everyone admired, as if he were beneath her, and the memory of her spilling coffee, the sting of her words, and the arrogance in her tone made her legs feel weak. As the presentation went on, Mr. Carter didn't mention the incident. He spoke of growth, vision, and ethics, but Anna couldn't focus on any of it. Her mind replayed the scene in the lobby over and over, each time with sharper clarity, each time with deeper regret. When the session ended, people lined up to shake his hand. Anna considered slipping away quietly, but before she could move, she heard the CEO's voice call out, "Anna, you work closely with client relations, don't you? Why don't you escort Mr. Carter to the lounge?" Her body froze. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. She felt trapped, exposed, her mask of confidence cracking. Mr. Carter glanced at her with the faintest flicker of recognition, but his face remained calm. Of course, Anna forced a smile, her voice trembling ever so slightly. She picked up her bag and walked a few steps ahead, her mind screaming at her for what she had done earlier. The walk to the lounge felt like an eternity. The quiet hallway amplified every sound, her heels clicking, her shallow breaths, the faint hum of the lights overhead. Finally, inside the lounge, Mr. Carter set his folder on the table and leaned back on the sofa, his eyes fixed on her. Anna clasped her hands together, trying to mask her unease. "Would you like me to bring you some coffee? Or water?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. He tilted his head slightly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Water," he said. "But make sure you don't throw it this time." The words hit her like a slap. Her knees nearly buckled, and her face turned crimson. I'm so sorry about earlier," she stammered. "I didn't realize." He raised a hand, cutting her off gently. "That's exactly the problem, isn't it? You didn't realize, and you didn't care to realize. It didn't matter to you who I was. All you saw was a man with a mop." His voice wasn't angry. It was calm, almost too calm, which somehow made the guilt worse. She bit her lip, fighting back the urge to cry. I was stressed, and I didn't mean..." "Stress doesn't give us the right to humiliate others," he said firmly, though still without raising his voice. "You wanted me to hurry, so you spilled coffee on me. Do you often treat people that way when you think they can't fight back?" Her chest tightened. She wanted to deny it, to defend herself, but deep down she knew there was truth in his words. She had brushed off waiters, frowned at delivery boys, snapped at cleaning staff. It was a pattern she had never confronted until now, and it burned inside her. "I'll make it right," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please believe me." "I'll do anything." Mr. Carter leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "I don't need you to do anything for me. What matters is what you learn from this. Because one day you'll stand on the other side of the table, and someone will look at you the same way you looked at me." Silence filled the room. Anna's eyes welled with tears, but she quickly looked down, unwilling to let them spill. Just then, the door opened, and the CEO stepped in with a wide smile. "How are we doing here? Everything good?" Mr. Carter leaned back, his calm mask back in place. "Everything is fine," he replied smoothly. "We were just discussing perspective." The CEO laughed, not sensing the tension, and motioned for Anna to stay. "Perfect. Anna, make sure Mr. Carter has everything he needs while he's here. I'll be back in a while." He left as quickly as he had come. Anna sat awkwardly across from him, her thoughts in chaos. She expected him to dismiss her, but instead he asked something that threw her off completely. "Tell me," he said, "why did you join this company? What are you chasing?" The question was so unexpected that she stumbled for words. I wanted to build a career, make a good living, and maybe prove myself," she said softly. "To whom?" He pressed. She hesitated, staring at her hands. "To my family. They never believed I could achieve anything. And to people around me, I just wanted respect." Mr. Carter studied her carefully, as if weighing her sincerity. "Respect," he repeated. "Interesting. Because true respect doesn't come from titles or money. It comes from how we treat the people who can give us nothing in return." His words echoed in her chest. She wanted to argue, to defend herself, but instead she sat in silence, her shame swallowing her whole. Moments later, he stood, adjusting his cufflinks. "I have a meeting to attend. But remember what I said, Anna. The way you treat the invisible is the true reflection of who you are." He walked toward the door. leaving her sitting alone, staring at the untouched glass of water on the table. Her mind raced. She knew this wasn't over. He had seen her at her worst, and she wasn't sure if she'd get another chance to prove herself. Yet a strange fire ignited inside her, part fear, part determination. She wanted to show him, to show herself, that she was more than the arrogant woman who had poured coffee on a stranger. But what she didn't know was that Mr. Carter wasn't finished testing her. The following morning, the office carried a different kind of energy. People whispered in small groups, their excitement buzzing like electricity. Everyone was still talking about Mr. Carter's surprise identity. Some praised his humility, some speculated about his wealth, and others admired his speech from yesterday. But for Anna, the whispers carried a different weight. Every time she stepped into a circle, conversations hushed, and eyes slid toward her as if people already suspected something. She sat at her desk, staring at her computer screen, but the words blurred before her eyes. Her thoughts were still trapped in the lounge, replaying his calm but piercing words. She had not slept properly. Guilt mixed with shame, and yet a strange determination burned in her chest. She wanted to face him again, to somehow undo the impression she had left. But she also dreaded the possibility that he might expose her publicly. By mid-morning, an email arrived in everyone's inbox. Mandatory team session at 11 a.m., special exercise led by Mr. Carter. The air grew thicker. Colleagues exchanged nervous looks. One of them leaned toward Anna, whispering, "What kind of exercise do you think it is? He's not here just to throw money. He's testing us." Anna forced a smile, but her stomach twisted tighter. Her mind instantly leapt to the possibility that this might be about her, that he might use the exercise to point out her mistake. She prayed silently that she was wrong. At 11 sharp, the staff gathered in the conference hall. Mr. Carter stood at the front, not with slides or charts this time, but with a quiet authority that filled the room. He clasped his hands together, his eyes scanning each face slowly, pausing long enough to make people shift in their seats. "Yesterday," he began, "I spoke about perspective. Today, I want to see how you practice it." A hush settled. Anna's chest tightened. "I believe," he continued, "that true character is revealed not in meetings, not in presentations, but in the small, often unnoticed choices we make daily. So today we will have a small test, not of your knowledge, but of your values." He gestured toward the back door. Two assistants wheeled in several large boxes. When they were opened, everyone was stunned to see stacks of cleaning supplies, mops, gloves, buckets, and rags. Murmurs rippled across the room. "I want each team," Mr. Carter explained calmly, "to step out of your roles for a while. No titles, no job descriptions. For the next 2 hours, you will take over basic maintenance tasks around this building, the kind most of you never think twice about. Some of you will clean windows, some will mop floors, some will tidy restrooms. While you do this, I will observe." A wave of discomfort spread across the staff. Some looked amused, some uneasy, and others outright offended. One manager raised his hand, forcing a chuckle. "Mr. Carter, with all due respect, is this really necessary? We're professionals, not janitors." Mr. Carter's eyes sharpened. "That is precisely why it's necessary," he replied, his tone even but firm. "Because if you cannot respect the work that sustains your environment, you cannot respect the people who do it either. Consider this exercise a reflection of your company's culture. If anyone refuses, you're free to leave the session." No one moved. The silence was heavy. People shifted uncomfortably, but no one wanted to be the first to walk out. Anna's heart pounded. She saw the trap clearly. This was more than a test of humility. It was a mirror held up to her face. She remembered the sting of his words yesterday. "Do you often treat people that way when you think they can't fight back?" Teams were assigned. Anna ended up in a small group with 2 interns and a senior colleague. Their task: clean the ground floor lobby windows and mop the entrance tiles, the very place where yesterday's incident had happened. The irony wasn't lost on her. As they picked up the supplies, one of the interns whispered, half joking, "Guess we're the janitors today." The other laughed nervously. But Anna couldn't bring herself to laugh. The weight of the mop in her hand felt heavier than it should. Every glance from her colleagues felt loaded, as if they all knew the hidden story. They worked in silence for a while. Anna bent down, scrubbing the tiles, her hands trembling slightly. The faint smell of cleaning solution filled her nose. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass door. Her usually composed self, now kneeling with rubber gloves, scrubbing like she had never done before. Behind them, Mr. Carter walked slowly, observing. He didn't say much, but Anna felt his eyes on her every movement. It wasn't cruel. It was measured, almost like a quiet challenge. After nearly an hour, her colleague groaned, leaning against the wall. "This is ridiculous. I didn't sign up for this. My back hurts already. Why are we even doing this?" Anna wanted to agree, to echo his frustration, but something inside stopped her. Instead, she found herself saying softly, "Because someone else does this every single day, and we don't even notice." Her colleague blinked at her, surprised. "What's gotten into you?" Anna shook her head, keeping her eyes on the floor she was scrubbing. "Maybe it's about time we realized their work matters as much as ours." There was silence for a moment. Even the interns seemed to pause, glancing at her. The words had come out before she had fully processed them, but they carried truth she could no longer deny. When the 2 hours ended, everyone returned to the conference hall, exhausted, sweaty, and humbled. Mr. Carter stood at the front once more. "I saw many things today," he said calmly. "Some of you worked with quiet determination. Some resisted, complained, and mocked, and a few surprised me." His eyes lingered on Anna for a brief moment, just long enough for her heart to skip. "Remember," he concluded, "this exercise was not about the floors or the windows. It was about the lens through which you see people and their value. If this company is to grow, it must begin with respect for every role, every effort, every person." A round of applause followed, but Anna barely heard it. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Had he meant her when he said "surprised me"? Or was that her imagination? As the crowd began to disperse, Mr. Carter called out, "Anna, a word, please." Every step toward him felt like walking into judgment. She braced herself. But when she finally stood before him, he said something she never expected. "You handled yourself differently today," he said quietly. "Why?" Anna swallowed hard. "Because I realized I was wrong. Yesterday I thought respect was about status. Today I saw how blind that made me. I'm not proud of how I treated you." He studied her face carefully, searching for any trace of pretense. After a long pause, he nodded slightly. "Words are easy. Change is harder. I'll be watching to see which one you choose." Then he turned and walked away, leaving her trembling, not from fear this time, but from the weight of the challenge he had laid before her. Little did she know, the real test was still coming. And it would not be in a controlled exercise, but in a moment of raw reality where her instinct, not her rehearsed answers, would reveal who she truly was. The days that followed carried a strange quietness for Anna. The office moved in its usual rhythm, yet beneath the surface, something had shifted. People spoke about Mr. Carter's unusual exercise, as if it were a test that revealed their hidden selves. Some laughed about it, treating it as an odd memory, while others seemed genuinely shaken by what they had realized. But for Anna, it wasn't just a memory. It clung to her like a shadow. She found herself looking differently at the staff she once overlooked. The cleaner in the lobby, whose face she had hardly noticed before, now stood out to her with startling clarity. She watched how he moved carefully, making sure people didn't slip on wet floors, how he bent his back tirelessly day after day without complaint. Every time she saw him now, a knot tightened in her stomach. It wasn't pity, it was regret mixed with awareness. One afternoon, while she was refilling her bottle at the water dispenser, she saw him struggling with a heavy cart filled with trash bags. Something inside her shifted. For the first time, she stepped forward. "Here, let me help you with that," she said, her voice awkward but genuine. The man looked surprised, almost suspicious. "No, miss, it's fine. This is my job." "I know," Anna said, forcing a small smile, "but it doesn't mean you should hurt your back over it." He paused, searching her face for sarcasm, but found none. Slowly he nodded. Thank you. It was a small act, but it stayed with her the rest of the day. She couldn't help but wonder if Mr. Carter would somehow hear about it, or if it even mattered. Maybe this wasn't about him anymore. Maybe it was about who she was when no one was watching. Yet despite her quiet attempts to change, the weight of her earlier mistake refused to lift. And Mr. Carter? He remained distant, calm, almost unreadable. He attended meetings, spoke with the board, and moved through the office with ease, but he never directly acknowledged her again beyond polite formalities. That silence gnawed at her, leaving her restless. Then, one Friday afternoon, the tension returned with full force. The CEO gathered the staff in the main hall for an announcement. The mood was festive at first. People expected news of a funding boost or expansion plans. The CEO's grin confirmed their hopes. Ladies and gentlemen, he declared, we are honored to share that Mr. Carter has agreed to not only invest, but also partner closely with our company. His involvement will open doors we never thought possible. Applause erupted, but Anna's chest tightened. She clapped along, her smile thin, while inside her nerves screamed. If he was partnering with the company, it meant he would be around more, watching, observing, perhaps still testing. The CEO wasn't finished. To strengthen our collaboration, Mr. Carter has requested to work closely with our client relations division, since that's the face of our company. And to lead this effort, he has specifically asked Anna. The room fell into a stunned silence for a split second before applause resumed, louder this time, mixed with surprise. Anna's breath caught in her throat. Her ears rang as she forced a stiff smile, nodding politely while her mind spun out of control. Why her? Why would he ask for her? As the applause died down, she risked a glance at Mr. Carter. He stood calmly at the side, clapping once or twice, his face unreadable. But when their eyes met for a fleeting second, she thought she saw the faintest glimmer of something. Challenge. Perhaps, or maybe curiosity. That night, Anna lay awake in her apartment, staring at the ceiling. She replayed the announcement over and over. Was this his way of punishing her? Tying her fate directly to his, forcing her to confront him daily? Or was it a chance, a strange opportunity to redeem herself? The uncertainty left her restless. The following week confirmed her fears and hopes alike. Working with Mr. Carter was unlike working with anyone else. He was demanding but never harsh, precise but never impatient. He noticed everything, small details, the tone of an email, the way she greeted a client, even the pauses in her voice during calls. It was as if nothing escaped him. One afternoon, while they were preparing a presentation for an important client, he suddenly stopped mid-sentence and looked at her. Anna, he said, why are you trying so hard to impress me? The question struck her like lightning. She blinked, fumbling for words. I just want to do well. His eyes narrowed slightly. Doing well is about the work, but you're performing. You're measuring every word, every move, as if I'm waiting for you to fail. Why? Her lips trembled. She wanted to tell him the truth, that she was haunted by the coffee, by her arrogance, by the shame of being exposed as someone shallow. But the words wouldn't come out. Instead, she said softly, because I don't want to disappoint you. His gaze lingered on her for a long moment before he turned back to the papers. Disappointment doesn't come from mistakes. It comes from refusing to learn from them. His words pierced deeper than any lecture could. She sat in silence, her throat tight, realizing he had seen straight through her. But as the weeks passed, something unexpected happened. The more time she spent working with him, the more she began to see layers she hadn't noticed before. Beneath his calm authority, there was patience, a quiet resilience, and an almost fatherly ability to correct without breaking someone's spirit. He didn't just test her, he taught her. Not directly, not with lessons spelled out, but with small challenges that forced her to rethink her values. And then came the twist no one saw coming. One morning, the CEO called a meeting in urgency. A major client had complained about mishandling, a delivery mix-up, missed deadlines, and poor communication. The company's reputation was at stake. Everyone scrambled to defend themselves, pointing fingers, shifting blame. The tension in the room was suffocating. Finally, the CEO slammed his hand on the table. "Enough, I want the truth. Who's responsible for this mess?" The room went silent. Eyes darted nervously. Then slowly attention shifted toward Anna's team. One of her colleagues muttered she was overseeing this account. Anna's heart dropped. She searched her memory, replaying emails and meetings. She realized with horror that there had been a mistake in scheduling, a detail she had overlooked while juggling tasks with Mr. Carter. The blame was falling squarely on her. The CEO's eyes narrowed. "Anna, is this true?" Her throat went dry. Her instinct screamed to defend herself, to say others were involved, to shift the blame like everyone else. Her pride clawed at her, demanding she protect her reputation. But then she remembered Mr. Carter's words. Disappointment doesn't come from mistakes. It comes from refusing to learn from them. She took a shaky breath. "Yes," she said softly, her voice trembling but clear. "It was my responsibility. I missed the detail. I'm sorry." The room buzzed with whispers. The CEO's face hardened, ready to lash out. But before he could, Mr. Carter raised a hand. "Stop," he said firmly, his calm voice slicing through the noise. "She admitted the mistake, which is more than most of you have done in this room. Accountability is the foundation of trust. If you punish the first person who chooses honesty, don't expect anyone else to follow." The room fell into stunned silence. The CEO froze, caught off guard. Anna sat there, heart racing, tears threatening to spill, unable to believe what had just happened. Mr. Carter glanced at her, his expression unreadable. But for the first time, she thought she saw something different in his eyes. Not judgment, not coldness, but a flicker of respect. And in that moment, Anna realized that her real test wasn't about scrubbing floors, or polite apologies, or trying to impress him. It was about facing herself and choosing honesty even when it could break her. But the storm wasn't over yet, because the consequences of that mistake were bigger than she realized. And soon she would be forced to confront not just her own fears, but the very foundation of the company's trust. Anna sat silently at her desk, her fingers frozen on the keyboard while the office buzzed around her. The memory of that humiliating moment still clung to her like a shadow. She had seen it replay in her mind over and over. Her pouring the coffee, his calm eyes meeting hers, the room full of whispers when he walked in, dressed as the powerful investor. Even now, she wondered why he hadn't exposed her outright in front of everyone. Maybe he wanted her to squirm. Maybe he wanted her to think about her actions. Or maybe, she thought, it was just a matter of time before he would crush her reputation. With a single word, the meeting that followed was nothing, less than a storm disguised as a gentle rain. Mr. Carter, now, no longer the cleaner in her eyes, had spoken with quiet authority. His voice carried the kind of weight that didn't need volume. He outlined plans, financial projections, and ideas that left everyone in the room nodding with admiration. Anna kept glancing at him, terrified, expecting him to call her out. But he never once mentioned the lobby incident. Instead, his focus was completely on business. And somehow that silence was worse. She could feel the tension like a knife pressed against her throat. Later that evening, when most of the staff had left, Anna found herself still at her desk, staring blankly at her computer screen. She didn't even notice when footsteps echoed across the quiet office floor. The sound made her heart skip. She looked up slowly, and there he was, Mr. Carter, standing near the doorway, watching her with the same unreadable expression. "You stayed late," he said casually. His tone polite but steady. She swallowed hard. "Yes, I had some reports to finish." He stepped inside, walking with unhurried steps until he was close enough to set his briefcase on the table next to her desk. "Reports can wait sometimes," he remarked, his gaze steady on her face. "But respect, that shouldn't wait. Don't you agree, Miss Anna?" Her chest tightened. The way he said her name, so calm yet pointed, made her skin prickle. She stammered, I didn't mean to." He raised a hand slightly, cutting her off without raising his voice. "You don't need to explain. Your actions spoke louder than your words ever could." He leaned slightly closer, his voice dropping into something softer, almost reflective. "I've been judged many times in my life by people who thought money or appearance decided worth. You're not the first. But what surprises me is not what you did. It's what you didn't do." She blinked, confused.
What do you mean?"
"You didn't apologize." He straightened again, gathering his briefcase. "That tells me more about who you are than the coffee you spilled on me." Anna felt her throat burn as guilt coiled tighter inside her. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She wanted to say she was sorry, wanted to explain that it had been stress, frustration, anything, but her pride still fought back. Leaving her in suffocating silence, Mr. Carter gave a faint smile, not of kindness, but of someone who had already made up his mind about her, and walked out, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. That night, Anna couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his calm stare, heard his words about respect and apology. By morning, her reflection in the mirror looked pale, restless, and strangely older. But when she arrived at the office, the atmosphere was already different. Word had spread. Mr. Carter wasn't just investing, he was planning to stay involved with the company as an advisor. He would be around every week. The news sent a wave of excitement through the staff, but for Anna, it felt like a noose tightening around her neck. She couldn't escape him, couldn't hide from the man who had seen her at her worst. In the following weeks, things only grew more complicated. Mr. Carter carried himself with quiet dignity, treating everyone with the same respect, whether they were executives or janitors. People admired him not just for his wealth, but for his humility. And slowly, Anna began noticing something that gnawed at her conscience. The same employees she used to overlook or dismiss, he treated with warmth and kindness. He remembered their names, asked about their families, and never acted as though he was above them. The contrast made her feel small. For the first time, she noticed the receptionist's tired smile, the security guard's polite nods, the cleaner's bent back. They had always been invisible to her, but now every small detail pressed against her like a reminder of her arrogance. One evening, as Anna was leaving, she found herself face to face with one of the building's cleaners, a middle-aged woman named Rosa. The woman smiled politely and stepped aside to let Anna pass, but something inside Anna froze. She couldn't. Instead, she heard herself saying, "Rosa, how long have you worked here?" The woman looked surprised but answered softly, "Almost 15 years. 15, Anna repeated, stunned. She had walked past Rosa countless times, but never once thought about her life, her struggles, her years of service. That night, Anna went home shaken. For the first time, she began to see the layers of people's lives she had ignored. But just as she was starting to question herself, a new twist arrived. The company announced a special gala event, one where Mr. Carter himself would be delivering a keynote speech. It was to be a night of recognition, celebration, and future plans. For Anna, it was both an opportunity and a nightmare. She dreaded being in the same room with him under the public eye, terrified that he might use that platform to expose her. When the night of the gala arrived, the ballroom glittered with lights, chandeliers reflecting across polished marble floors. Music floated softly through the air as people mingled in elegant dresses and sharp suits. Anna wore a gown that shimmered under the light, but inside, her nerves were frayed. She kept scanning the crowd for him, and then he appeared, descending the grand staircase with an ease that commanded attention. Conversations hushed as eyes turned toward him. He smiled, shook hands, and greeted everyone warmly. Anna tried to avoid his gaze, but halfway through the evening, their eyes locked across the room. Her chest tightened, and she looked away quickly. The speech began later that night, and everyone turned toward the stage. Mr. Carter's voice filled the hall, strong yet humble. He spoke not about profits or success, but about dignity, humility, and the danger of underestimating others. His words carried weight, and as he spoke, Anna felt each line striking her like a hammer against her chest. And then came the unexpected twist. He paused, looked directly toward the crowd, and said, "Sometimes the greatest lessons come from the smallest moments. A single act, a single word, can reveal how deeply we value others. And in my short time here, I've witnessed moments that reminded me why respect matters more than money ever will." Anna's heart stopped. Was this it? Was he about to expose her? But instead he smiled faintly and continued, "It is not wealth that defines a person, but how they treat those who cannot offer them anything in return." The hall erupted in applause, and Anna sat frozen in her chair, her hands trembling. He hadn't called her out directly, but the message was clear, and she knew, so did he. The applause faded slowly, replaced by the sound of clinking glasses and the soft buzz of conversation. People leaned toward one another, whispering about the brilliance of Mr. Carter's words, some even wiping away tears because of how his speech had struck a personal chord. Yet amid all the admiration, Anna sat stiff in her chair, her heart racing as though she had been personally stripped bare in front of the entire crowd. His words were not aimed at her by name, but she knew. They were a mirror he had held up to her soul, and she could not escape her own reflection. She forced herself to smile faintly whenever someone near her looked her way. But her mind was far from the room. Questions clawed at her. Why hadn't he exposed her publicly? Why hadn't he used his power to shame her in front of everyone when he so easily could have? That would have been easier to handle in some strange way. A clean cut, a wound that could eventually heal. But this silence, this indirect reminder was worse. It left her guessing, unsettled, vulnerable in a way she had never been before. Later that night, after the gala ended, she left quickly, avoiding people as much as she could. The city streets outside glowed with neon signs and the shimmer of rain-soaked pavement. She hailed a cab, sliding into the back seat with shaky hands. The driver asked where she wanted to go, and for a moment she couldn't speak. When the words finally left her lips, her voice sounded strange, hollow. "Just take me home." But home did not bring comfort. Instead, it brought silence, loud, suffocating silence. She sat by the window, staring at the city lights, replaying his voice over and over. It is not wealth that defines a person, but how they treat those who cannot offer them anything in return. Each time she heard it in her mind, it chipped away at the armor of pride she had worn all her life. The following week, the office felt different. Everyone seemed more energized after the gala, inspired by Mr. Carter's presence and his vision for the company. He had begun visiting regularly, walking through the building with an ease that made people forget his wealth. He spoke with interns, joked with receptionists, and even carried boxes when he saw staff struggling. It was as though he was intentionally dismantling the invisible walls that Anna and others like her had built around themselves. And yet, his presence was a constant torment for Anna. Every time she saw him, she felt her stomach tighten, afraid that today might be the day he would finally bring up the incident directly. But he never did. Instead, he treated her with the same polite professionalism he showed everyone else. That very normalcy made her more restless. One morning, as she entered the building, she noticed something unusual. In the lobby, Mr. Carter was sitting on one of the couches, speaking with Rosa, the cleaner Anna had awkwardly spoken to weeks earlier. They were deep in conversation, their expressions soft, almost familial. Rosa laughed at something he said, her tired face lighting up in a way Anna had never seen. Anna slowed her pace, pretending to check her phone, but her eyes stayed on them. She caught fragments of their conversation as she passed by. "My son finally found a job," Rosa was saying proudly. "It's not much, but he's happy." "That's wonderful," Carter replied warmly. "Sometimes happiness is worth more than any paycheck." The words stung Anna like salt in a wound. She walked toward the elevator, but her steps felt heavy. For the rest of the day, she couldn't shake the image of them sitting together. Rosa opening up, Carter listening like he had all the time in the world. That evening, as the office emptied out, Anna lingered again. hoping to avoid running into him. But fate seemed determined to place them together. As she walked toward the elevator, she saw him waiting there, hands in his pockets, gazing quietly at the floor numbers above. The silence stretched as they stood side by side. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Carter, I've been meaning to say something." He turned his head, his eyes calm but searching. "Yes?" She swallowed hard. The apology rose to her lips, but just as quickly, fear and pride choked it back down. Instead, she said, "Your speech at the gala, it was powerful. People are still talking about it." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Words are only powerful if they change something. Otherwise, they're just air." The elevator doors opened, and he stepped inside. Anna hesitated, then followed. The doors closed, sealing them in a small space heavy with unspoken tension. She wanted to say more, to apologize, to explain, but once again her pride froze her tongue. "Good night, Miss Anna," he said softly when the elevator reached his floor. And just like that, he was gone, leaving her drowning in her own silence once again. Days turned into weeks, and Anna's internal battle grew fiercer. The more she watched Carter interact with others, the more her guilt gnawed at her. She began noticing small things she had never paid attention to before. The way the interns looked nervous when speaking to managers. The way cleaners moved quickly out of employees' paths, as if apologizing for existing. The way security guards stood for hours without anyone acknowledging them. She realized she had been blind, not just in that one moment with Carter, but in countless moments across her career. But still, she couldn't bring herself to admit her mistake. She told herself that maybe it was too late, that an apology now would sound forced, insincere. And deep down, another voice whispered something darker. "If you admit it, everyone will know what you did." Then came the twist that would shake her even further. One afternoon, the CEO announced in a staff meeting that Mr. Carter was considering creating a new foundation, one aimed at supporting employees from lower-income backgrounds, giving scholarships to their children, and helping families struggling with medical bills. The idea electrified the room, with people clapping and nodding eagerly. But then Carter spoke up, his voice calm as always. "I want someone from within this company to help lead the foundation project. Not just a manager or an executive. Someone who understands what it means to change perspective. Someone who can grow." All eyes turned toward him. Anna felt her pulse quicken, sensing that somehow his words were circling closer to her. And then, almost deliberately, his gaze landed on her. "I believe Ms. Anna could take on that responsibility," he said, his tone measured but unmistakable. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Anna's chest tightened as heat rushed to her face. She could hardly breathe. Was this a chance at redemption, or a punishment in disguise? Why would he choose her of all people? Did he want to test her, to force her into confronting her own hypocrisy? She stammered, I would be honored, but..." "There are no buts," Carter interrupted gently. "This is not about honor. It's about responsibility. Think of it as an opportunity to redefine yourself." The meeting moved on, but Anna barely heard a word. Her mind was spinning. He had just handed her the one thing she feared most, a chance to face the very values she had ignored all her life. That night, lying awake in her bed, she realized something that terrified her more than his silence, more than his calm judgment. He wasn't going to expose her. He wasn't going to shame her. Instead, he was going to make her live with the weight of her choice, to either rise to the challenge and change, or crumble under the truth she had buried inside. And deep down, she knew the real test hadn't even started yet. Anna accepted the role reluctantly, her mind torn between fear and pride. At first, she treated it like another corporate project, drafting plans, attending meetings, signing papers. But Carter had other plans. He insisted she leave the comfort of her glass office and visit the lives of the people this foundation would serve. One chilly morning, she found herself walking into a small neighborhood on the edge of the city. The houses were old, paint peeling, windows cracked. Children played in narrow streets with worn-out shoes while their mothers stood nearby, carrying the kind of quiet exhaustion that came from years of struggle. Rosa, the cleaner, walked beside Anna, guiding her through the area. "This is where I live," Rosa said softly. Her voice was not bitter, just honest. "I've raised my son here. Every night I tell him to study hard, to work hard, so maybe one day he won't have to mop floors like me." The words pierced Anna in a way she hadn't expected. She looked at Rosa, then at the small boy waving at his mother from a doorway. He smiled shyly at Anna before running off to chase his friends. For a moment, Anna couldn't breathe. She had walked past Rosa for years without even knowing her story. And now, standing in the heart of it, she felt the weight of her blindness pressing down. Later that week, Carter asked her how the visit went. She hesitated, then admitted quietly, I didn't realize how much I never saw. I thought respect was about positions, titles. But it's not." Carter gave a small nod. "Perspective doesn't come from boardrooms. It comes from the ground beneath them." But then came the twist she hadn't expected. The Foundation's first major scholarship award ceremony was scheduled, and Carter announced he wouldn't be the one handing out the checks. "This should be Anna's responsibility," he said. "She has earned the chance to show what leadership really means." The night of the ceremony, the hall was filled with employees, their families, and even community members. Children in their best clothes stood nervously beside proud parents. Anna stood on the stage, her hands trembling as she held the microphone. She glanced at Carter in the front row, his expression calm, encouraging but unreadable. Taking a shaky breath, she began to speak. "When I was asked to lead this project, I thought it was just another task. But then I saw the lives behind the names, the struggles, the hopes, and I realized how blind I had been." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pressed on. "I once judged someone unfairly, thinking they were beneath me. That mistake taught me a lesson I can never forget. Respect isn't something you give only to those above you. It's something every human being deserves, no matter where they stand." A hush fell over the crowd. Some nodded, others looked thoughtful. And then, to everyone's surprise, Anna turned toward Carter and said with a trembling voice, "Mr. Carter, I never apologized to you. That day in the lobby, I disrespected you, not knowing who you were. But the truth is, it shouldn't have mattered who you were. For that I am deeply sorry." The room went silent. Every eye turned to Carter. Slowly, he rose from his chair and walked toward the stage. For a heartbeat, no one knew what he would do. Then he took the microphone gently, his voice steady. "Apology accepted," he said simply. Then turning to the crowd, he added, "But remember this. True change doesn't come from words spoken on a stage. It comes from how we treat people when no one is watching." The audience erupted into applause. Anna felt tears sting her eyes as Carter shook her hand firmly before stepping back down. From that day on, the story of Anna and Carter became more than office gossip. It became a quiet legend in the company, a reminder that arrogance can blind, but humility can heal. Employees began treating each other differently. Rosa was no longer invisible. She was greeted with smiles and respect. And Anna, though still battling her pride at times, carried the memory of her mistake like a scar, a painful, permanent reminder of the lesson she had learned. Moral lesson: never measure people by their clothes, their jobs, or their status. The cleaner you ignore today might be the millionaire who holds your future tomorrow. True character is revealed not by how we treat those above us, but by how we honor those who can offer us nothing in return. Respect is not earned by power, it is given by humanity.